As far as the noble role of sidekick goes in the vast universe of fictional entertainment, Miles the Tails Prower legitimately stands tall alongside the greats as one of the most recognizable and famous video game sidekicks of all time. That's right, move over Luigi, Navi, Kazooie, and all ye faithful woofers. The Sonic series has its very own Samwise Gamgee, and he beats a lot of you hands down. For the past 30 years, yes, this 8-year-old is 30, Tails has been a loyal friend and crucial ally to Sonic, following him around on dangerous adventures, providing emotional and technical support, and being a straight-up saint, patiently listening to his mentor's attitude and bluster for 3 decades. As you might be able to tell from my ever-so-subtle jokes, I'm among the many people who are extremely unhappy with the direction Tails' character has been taken over the past 15 years. Before he had his face surgically attached to his baby's first plot device, serving as nothing more than a narrative compass to point Sonic in the right direction, Tails had a pretty amazing character arc. One that spanned multiple games, and ultimately seen him transcend the stereotypical sidekick role. The growth that Tails achieved under the tutelage of Sonic was really something to behold, and his success as a character even helped Sonic to grow in tandem. This synergy between characters that became prevalent during the first 15 years of the series was truly special. One that gave depth to each and every character and portrayed them as important to the story being told. But the tale of Tails is a long one, and in order to comprehensively detail the dizzying highs and nauseating lows for his character, and properly explain how he once upon a time was so important, I've brought in some outside help.
Hey everyone, Chaomix here. Tails is like that little brother you never had. They look up to you and want to mimic everything you do, and sometimes that gets annoying. But at the end of the day, that's your brother. You gotta look out for one another. So let's check in on him and see how he's doing, shall we?
Sonic, help me!
Oh no. What happened? Well, I guess we should do some digging and see how we got to this point.
And you all better bring your finest shovels, as our boy has been buried deep over the years. So without further delay, let's get started, shall we? Despite being one of the most recognizable characters in the series, with more appearances to his name than anyone really apart from Sonic, Tails had pretty humble beginnings in the series. He didn't get any grand entrances, or have motivations with major and immediate importance to the narrative. You boot up Sonic 2 and he's just there. But you see, like the initially shy disposition of the adorable fox boy himself, the importance of Tails is far more subtle in nature.
Sonic and Tails being best buds very well could have not even happened, because them meeting in the first place came down to pure coincidence. After the events of Sonic 1 on South Island, our heroic Blue Rat was looking to enjoy some quality vacation time in an obscure little area called West Side Island. So he travels there by flying his biplane, the Tornado. Yeah, on top of being able to run at supersonic speeds, Sonic is also a very skilled pilot, who would have thought? So Sonic is enjoying some peace and quiet on the beautiful West Side Island, only for the silence to be smashed by a complete invasion by none other than Dr. Robotnik. Sending a swarm of his badniks who immediately start tearing up everything around him, Sonic is yet again forced to put a stop to the Doctor's plans.
Tails' affinity for machinery and technology, a defining and well-known trait of his character by now, was actually a dominant characteristic for him right from the beginning. And as Chaomix said, it's only thanks to this fascination that he and Sonic even met in the first place. His curiosity about the tornado, ultimately leading to him following his newfound icon on a mission against Robotnik. And as time goes by, and the Fox Cub still remains by his side, Sonic can't help but be impressed at this little guy trying to keep up with him, and how he bravely stands by his side during all the dangers they face. Sonic can see that Tails just wants to help people any way he can, even if he is only a kid. And unable to ignore this bravery and tenacity, Sonic decides to take Tails under his wing.
You see, this is just how Tails is. He's a good boy, always trying to help those in need, very good-natured. We can see this in his spin-off game, Tails Adventure, for the Game Gear. Funnily enough, this game's plot is different depending on what regional version you're playing, but I'm gonna assume the Japanese version is the canon version. But anyways, this game takes place before Sonic and Tails even meet. One day on Coco Island, a large explosion rings across the green forest, soon setting everything ablaze. Tails, who happened to be in the area, obviously hears the commotion and goes to check it out. And wouldn't you know it, it's the Battle Cuckoo Empire looking for the Chaos Emeralds to fulfill their plan of world domination. Man, I hate when that happens. But despite being the first adventure for the Fox, Tails musters up his courage and goes head-to-head against the group of unwelcome guests. A pretty noble deed, indeed. And by God, he actually does it, the Mad Lad. If this isn't exemplary of Tails' true character, then I don't know what is.
See, one of the key things we need to understand to realize just how important Tails is to the overall series is that the relationship between him and Sonic is mutually beneficial to both characters. It all comes back to that synergy I mentioned at the beginning, and how, when utilized properly, the results are hard to argue with. Tails' unbridled admiration helps legitimize Sonic in his world, similar to how Robin or Commissioner Gordon do the same for Batman. Robin showing that people look up to and want to emulate Batman, and Gordon, as police commissioner, legitimizes Batman's cause. Tails establishes the idea that Sonic is a symbol. Not that kind of symbol, you dirty filth monkeys. Someone people can look up to, seen by many as a hero. A very important perception when you're trying to build a universe around someone. And Tails? He gains the benefit of mentorship from Sonic. After all, Sonic must have seen something truly special in him to have taken him under his wing at all, right? There was no nepotism here. Tails was recruited on his own merits. And while he starts out as shy and lacking in confidence, Sonic knows that there's a lot more to this unassuming kid than meets the eye.
I mean, this literal child was able to learn how to pilot the tornado basically on the spot. He also was able to quickly repair the thing after it was shot down. Tails is kind of a genius, and Sonic quickly realizes this. And even beyond just technical expertise, Tails was more than competent at Sonic's side. He could use his tails to propel himself forward and keep up with the Blue Blur himself. He also could hold his own in fights, using his flight to perfectly position himself for an opportune attack, or simply by using his tails as a weapon.
Even before the days of mechs and transforming planes, Tails already made it crystal clear just how adaptive and useful he can be to Sonic. He put his blood, sweat, and tears into everything he did, pushing himself to the brink just to keep up with far more experienced heroes. And something about watching this furry little Swiss Army knife use his inspiration from Sonic to achieve things nobody would expect of him was pretty damn endearing. Sidekick can be a bit of a dirty word, often used in the real world to make fun of quiet kids who gravitate towards more charismatic or popular people. Even the definition of the word isn't all that flattering. An assistant or close associate, often with less authority. I much prefer the word protege, someone who is guided by a more experienced or influential person. And I think this is how Sonic's seen Tails. A protege, not a mere sidekick. Tails is actually suffering a crisis of identity in the first adventure game. But, and hear me out here, the key difference here versus later in the series is that it's not because he's written badly. A super important distinction. This crisis of identity is very much intentional, and a huge part of the arc for his character.
For the good majority of his story in the first adventure game, Tails is fighting an extreme insecurity. An insecurity telling him that he isn't worthy of standing alongside a true hero like Sonic. So in order to prove himself, he makes a promise not only to keep up with Sonic, but to find his own way of doing things all by himself. The first thing he does is a complete upgrade of the tornado. Using some superb engineering skills and some chaos energy, Tails upgrades the Tornado into the Tornado 2, a powerful transforming biplane capable of going head-to-head against colossal airships such as the Egg Carrier. But even after this amazing accomplishment, Tails still has his doubts.
See, he's so consumed by learning everything he can from Sonic that he ends up thinking he has to effectively be Sonic. And that's a lot of pressure to put on an 8-year-old. His struggles to achieve this, let's be honest, impossible goal sees him very much lacking in confidence when it comes to going out on his own. His fixation blinding him to the very things that make him special. The things he has a natural affinity for. The things only he brings to the table. And in trying to be someone and something he's not, he fails to be his best self. Deep down, Tails knows he's different. He knows the things he's really passionate about aren't all that interesting to the likes of Sonic, even saying how he hates when Sonic doesn't listen to him after admiring the intricacies of the Egg Carrier transformation. Tails and Sonic are different, and Tails starts to realize this towards the end of the game. and that it's okay. Circumstances beyond his control eventually sees Tails separated from Sonic, forcing him to face a frustrated and deranged Eggman by himself. And while he is absolutely terrified, he's still unable to just stand by as Station Square is wiped out by Eggman, a threat he's never had to face without Sonic before. And even when flooded by fear and feelings of self-doubt, this brave fox cub, this kid, realizes that he can't use Sonic as a crutch and rely on him forever. And stepping out from Sonic's shadow to finally stand on his own 2 feet, Tails faces down Eggman alone. This is no longer a non-canon fight, where he slaps Knuckles around or saves Angel Island single-handedly. This time he stands alone, as Station Square's last line of defense against Eggman, a villain the entire world lives in fear of. And he succeeds. This timid little fur boy, who was only ever known up to this point as Sonic's sidekick, has single-handedly taken down the series' main antagonist, saving an entire city from a nuclear strike. This is what character growth looks like, and I love it. There's a clear message here that digging down deep and believing in yourself is the most effective way to get things done. You can just curl up in a ball and cry if you want, but that's not going to accomplish anything.
The bird had finally left its nest. Tails put his faith in everything he'd learned from Sonic and turned around and surprised everyone, especially Eggman. Sonic's relentless support and encouragement paid off when it mattered most, and Tails was able to find enough courage in himself to realize that he is capable of doing things on his own. In that moment, Tails was able to realize his potential and become fully independent. And although Tails can finally rely on himself, it was very much thanks to Sonic's mentorship that he was able to achieve such feats. Sure, there's always going to be times when Sonic just doesn't get why Tails drools so much over some techie mumbo-jumbo, but that never stops him from admiring and praising his skills. And it's those exact skills that Sonic doesn't quite understand that makes Tails so unique, a partner who's completely capable in his own unique way.
And now that Tails is ready to embrace what makes him special and lean into his strengths, he's finally ready to tap into his limitless potential. Sonic knew what made Tails unique right from the beginning, and he never expected him to be anything besides himself. Tails may never have discovered who he is without Sonic, and the question of just what Sonic's seen in this shy little fox cub when he first toddled along behind him back on West Side Island has now been well and truly answered. Sonic Adventure 2 represents what I believe is the pinnacle of Tails as a character. The little guy is finally now comfortable in his own skin, making peace with the fact that he will never be Sonic, and that nobody ever expected him to. You see, Sonic didn't recruit Tails to be the fastest or the strongest. He recruited him because he's seen a determined, brave, and clever little fox who wanted to do whatever he could to help people. Tails has finally come to that realization, and with the weight of that phantom expectation that he had to somehow become the next Sonic now lifted, he's free to fully embrace his own gifts as an engineering genius, creating his very own jet plane that can transform into a freaking battle mech and a car, allowing him to carry out pretty much any task required of him. The growth Tails achieved at the end of Adventure is very much evident right from the beginning of Adventure 2. After hearing Sonic has been falsely imprisoned for stealing a Chaos Emerald, Tails wastes no time lodging an appeal against his conviction in the form of a weaponized super mech, flying to Prison Island with the intention of freeing Sonic himself if he has to.
Oh, and one of the first things he does in this game is face off against and beat Eggman in a one-on-one mech fight. You know, the very thing that took every scrap of courage he had in the last game. Yeah, at this point, Tails ain't playing around. He has so much confidence that fighting and winning against the Doctor is child's play. And while there are moments, especially towards the end of the game, where Tails begins to lose his cool, his mentor's cool and collected attitude is rubbed off on him, and he's able to assess the situation and calculate a precise solution to victory every time.
Just like his overpowered death plane, Tails has now completely transformed as a character, growing from simply being Sonic's sidekick to being a partner, an equal. He's now trusted enough to go on solo missions that are crucial to the team's success, and Tails does not disappoint. Storming the Pyramid Base, tracking down the President, tracing Eggman's signal to the Ark and revealing his location, even coming up with the plan to use the fake Emerald to take out the Eclipse Cannon. And you know, making a fake Chaos Emerald. I mean, holy shit. Like, when you stop to think about that for just 1 minute, this 8-year-old kid somehow managed creating a power source similar to one rumored to have been created by the gods. And yeah, whatever, it gives off less energy, but still, it really is no wonder he can even measure up to the intellect of Eggman himself.
In all likelihood, without Tails, the heroes would have most likely failed. His involvement and contribution to the entire team was absolutely critical to their success. I mean, they likely would have never even located the Ark without him, never mind putting a stop to the Eclipse cannon and succeeding at the cannon's core. Tails has become an equal member of the team, just as valuable as someone like Knuckles or even Sonic. Tails definitely carries more than his fair share of weight during their adventures. And this is such a cool thing to see, especially if you understand where this character started from. In many ways, Tails was actually growing up alongside the audience. Not literally, of course, it's been 30 years and this kid's still 8 years old. But for the kids who got to see him back when he was tagging alongside as Sonic's sidekick in the classics, a lot of them were now teenagers at that point. And speaking personally, it was really motivating to see Tails grow into this character that he was in SA2. The message of his story always came across to me as, instead of following in the footsteps of others, find the path that's best for you. Embrace what makes you special, and the right people will see your value. And like many other Sonic characters and the messages they sent, at least back when they were written properly, this was inspiring stuff. Yeah, that might sound corny, and sure, maybe we're reading into it too much, but there's a reason the characterizations and themes from this period are held in such a high regard by fans. I think there was something deeper to be found in these games. You just had to look a bit past the surface to see the treasure that lies underneath.
Tails losing his shit and hulking out on Eggman when he thought he killed Sonic was really cool to see, and a much more admirable and believable reaction than whatever the hell Chaos Gate was supposed to be, showing his love for Sonic and the pain from his loss by rage beaming Eggman into the middle of next week.
No, I can't lose to Tails.
Sure, there was probably an element of guilt here too, seeing as he accidentally let slip about the fake emerald, causing Sonic to be trapped. But I've always really liked this scene. It's in such stark contrast to how clever he is in every other way, showing that despite his insane intelligence, he's still a dumb little kid at the same time. What must it be like to live in his head? Wanting to finish up a late night of working, making a
TV out of paperclip.
but also wanting to go downstairs at 7 a.m. in your jammies to watch some cartoons. Don't start me on the goddamn paperclips. And hey, if Tails was feeling rage guilty about being tricked by Eggman here, he needs to have a good stern word with himself about barely lifting his head from his tablet to watch Sonic get destroyed here. He should have wanted to hang Infinite from a clothesline by his short and curlies. Goddamn, I hate this scene. In Sonic Adventure 2, Tails grows from needing guidance from Sonic for everything to providing guidance to Sonic for everything. And this was the best way of doing that dynamic. Not make it all he ever does like in the meta era. Tails still got to get stuck in and get his hands dirty. To me, this is Tails. And this was when he was perfectly balanced as a character. Just as the character of Tails had finally reached its prime, and it really seemed like the sky was the limit for this sidekick turned hero, Sonic Heroes would come along and pretty much change everything for him. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Sonic Heroes. Everything from the gameplay and stage designs to the god-tier soundtrack. I'm a loud and proud apologist for a lot of this game's quirks, and I've spoken in depth about a lot of this in the past. But this video isn't really about reviewing, making excuses for, or trying to rationalize the reasoning behind the choices and changes Sonic Heroes made to the series. It was ugly in places, and super rough around the edges. A lot like me, if I'm to believe what the mirror tells me, and maybe that's why I have such a soft spot for it. But I'm not gonna sit here and lie to myself or you and pretend that certain characters in this game didn't suffer huge regression. The start of a trend, really, when it comes to Tails. While a lot was done for the broship and sense of camaraderie between the members of Team Sonic, unfortunately, it came at the cost of Tails' hard-earned independence and sense of identity, something he had spent nearly 10 years achieving. He cowers at the mere mention of ghosts, and kinda clings to Sonic again just like he used to, not to mention the repetitive whining during gameplay.
I'm falling! I'm falling! Yeah! I'm falling! I'm falling! I'm falling! Shut up, Tails!
I really wonder how long before I get called up for repeatedly using that joke. Maybe I should stop using it.
I'm gonna.
Whether this was done in the name of team dynamics or not really shouldn't matter. Team Dark didn't have a naive kid character on it, and they got by just fine. So in my view, Tails could have easily kept his growth and confidence without damaging the team dynamic of Team Sonic in any way. Wait, shouldn't it be Knuckles who's afraid of ghosts? How about stop projecting your phobias on little kids, Knuckles, you dick?
Tails pilots the Cyclone in the intro cutscene for Team Sonic's story, but other than that, there really isn't anything else in the games that showcase his engineering abilities. Maybe him noticing that Metal wasn't a regular Eggman robot after the Egg Albatross boss fight could be a little nod to this, but other than that, Tails is kind of back to being a standard sidekick, at least when it comes to the story. In general, I think Heroes does a great job at highlighting each character's strengths and weaknesses in gameplay, but this kid's kinda back to being Sonic's little helper during the story. It's unfortunate. And after Heroes, Tails feels tacked on at best when it comes to his inclusion in Sonic 06. His contribution and value to the story is probably at an all-time low, and he's completely overshadowed by a lot of the other characters. It's sad to see because with the story involving time travel, underwater laboratory bases, cool Eggman robots, and another colossal egg carrier, you'd think Tails would be able to use his technical expertise to really help out our heroes in some way. But nope, he doesn't. The best he does is access a computer in Crisis City to find out what year it is. Like, bro, even I could do that. Other than that, he just throws ring bombs at enemies and calls it a day.
While mostly well written as a kind and caring guy in Unleashed, Tails really just fills the role of tech support for this game, and is also still a bit of a coward. But besides this somewhat background technical support role, his very inclusion in the game has always seemed pretty redundant to me. I mean, the sidekick spot is already filled by Chip.
Listen guys, I have a lot to say about how Tails was handled in Sonic Unleashed. Lots of people like to say that his character was completely thrown away during the meta era, which would be Sonic Colors and on, which we will be getting into later, but I actually disagree with this. I think the point where it truly started was in this very game, Sonic Unleashed. As Mark already pointed out, Tails plays the tech support role in this game. Since Chip is the dedicated sidekick and comedy relief, there isn't much room for Tails to occupy a similar role in the passenger seat. So he's sitting down somewhere way in the back of the vehicle. Not ideal, but it happens. But the point that really gets me all hot and bothered is this scene right here that introduces Tails to the game. We see Tails surrounded by a group of enemies completely unable to help himself. After pleading with them to settle down, he flies away screaming, and then cowers in fear behind a wall. Now, I'm not trying to imply that Tails should be throwing hands and soloing each and every enemy, but like, why's he gotta be such a little bitch here? Trembling and crying for help against a bunch of enemies just standing there? Is this really the same character from Sonic Adventure? The one that saved an entire city from completely exploding? Like, what is this? I'm fine with him struggling, heck, even being unable to defeat these guys by himself, but this is just embarrassing. He doesn't even try putting up a fight here, he immediately resorts to running away. Now, I can already hear people in the comments trying to do some crazy mental gymnastics with power scaling to tell me why I'm wrong, so let me just smack that down right here and now. Power scaling means nothing because the writers can write Tails to do literally whatever they want, and they chose to make him a coward here. And if the writers had a good understanding of how Tails should have behaved in this scenario, this entire scene would not have existed in the way it does. I also have seen people try to make the counter argument that Tails had never seen these enemies before, which is why he ran away like a coward. But by that logic, wouldn't that mean Tails would run away from every new enemy he's ever fought? Like, there's gotta be a first time for everything, right? Imagine in Act 1 of Emerald Hill, you start making your way forward and get to little old coconuts up there in the palm tree and Tails immediately runs off screen like a coward. Then the game gives you a game over. Nah, that's not how that should work. Anyways, Sonic Unleashed, in my opinion, is the first game to actually go out of its way to incorrectly write Tails as a character. Not just write him poorly, but actually go against his entire characterization established until that point. This is the starting point of the absolute downward spiral of Tails' characterization. And then we have Sonic Colors. Sonic Colors was a huge shift in the entire series in terms of writing, which is explained by the new pair of writers they brought on from that point forward, Pontac and Graf, or Pontaf for short. Almost every character is just handled, how do I put this, different. The series would go on to be more comedy-based, and in many ways, characters felt like they were completely different entities. Almost like the writers didn't know who these characters were, like, at all. Tails is handled in a very similar way in Sonic Colors as he was in Unleashed. Again, he plays the role of tech support, which is kinda lame, but at least he isn't as disgraceful as he was in Unleashed. This is probably because the character doesn't really do anything in this game. Can't be a coward if you don't even put your neck out there in the first place, right? Yeah, this is another game where Tails is completely on the sidelines. He's literally an iPad kid, glued to his device, probably on YouTube watching the complete lore of Five Nights at Freddy's or some shit, I don't know. Sonic and Tails do have some good camaraderie here, like they should. But the dynamic between Sonic and Tails is so much more than them just being buddy-buddy. They're supposed to be teammates who go on adventures together, but Sonic leaves him behind and does all the heavy lifting completely by himself. Remember how Tails felt insecure about not being able to keep up with Sonic in Adventure 1? Well, he is perfectly okay with just sitting on his ass and watching Sonic do literally everything here. Like, it makes no sense. It's as if these aren't even the same characters.
On the surface, it might seem like Tails got a pretty good showing in Generations. I mean, compared to pretty much every other supporting character, he got a lot of screen time. But to be honest, that's a pretty low bar to set. And when you boil everything down to its simplest form, Tails was mainly just there to explain parts of the plot. Get comfortable in this role, my friend. You're gonna be here a while. Lost World sees Tails go from steadfastly loyal younger brother type to basically a tantrum-throwing toddler, constantly whining at Sonic about every little thing. And seriously, becoming jealous of Eggman? Tails has already overcome this type of insecure nonsense, so why have him revert to it again here? Maybe they were trying to make Tails more angsty while still being childish, using his jealousy of Eggman as a way of creating friction between him and Sonic to, I don't know, show that he's growing up and asserting his own views. And you know what? This could have actually worked if it was handled better. A way of further exploring their relationship with conflict and creating a new dynamic for them. But, like most things in the series' recent history, the execution was dismally cringe. Tails didn't grow or learn anything from this. He's just as smug about everything at the end of the game as he is at the start. One of the best things about Tails was that he was always really humble, even though he had no business ever being so humble with his insane intellect and list of huge achievements. But that was always one of the best things about his character, a trait that's completely obliterated in Lost World. I've seen this described as Tails finally developing his own personality, being proud of his genius, and exerting his independence by speaking up against Sonic when he disagrees with him. But all I see is a whiny little know-it-all who can't look past the situation and see the bigger picture, ultimately coming off as an unreasonable asshole. He never misses an opportunity to boast or rub it in whenever he's right, which just doesn't come off as believable or fair. If Sonic did that every time he saved Tails, he'd never hear the end of it. Crashing planes, mistranslations, nearly causing Sonic's death. Sonic has always been fair to Tails even when he messes up. So this insensitive portrayal of him just really makes no sense. To make things worse, Tails has been unfortunate in that he's fallen into the role of being the smart person on the good guys team, there purely to counter the smart bad guy. Tails is smart. Nobody can ever deny that. It's always been a huge part of his character right from the beginning. The thing that ultimately ended up making him special, allowing him to do cool shit like make a plane robot hybrid, a fake Chaos Emerald, and even believably come out on top against Eggman time and time again. But of course, this has now been flanderized until he became Hollywood smart. You know, that thing we get when we watch a movie or TV show where a character is super smart and an expert in their field, but the lines they are given and the buzzwords they spew out make the eyes of any real experts watching roll back in their heads so fast they get whiplash. Like the writers just read the first paragraph on the subject on Wikipedia and called it a day. But pretend as those writers might, Tails is no longer legitimately smart or useful in specific ways like he used to be. Instead, opting to have him vomit out a series of nonsensical tech jargon.
Now let me see. Gotta connect the framostatic capacitor to the maximizing modulationizer.
Alright, we good to go or what, Tails?
I've built a TV out of paper clips.
Yeah.
And reprogrammed a supercomputer using dishwashing detergent and a toothpick.
I know.
So look, fixing a propeller on a biplane? That's about as difficult as taking a nap.
What does any of that even mean? This isn't smart. This doesn't even sound smart. It's meaningless, patronizing drivel that serves absolutely no purpose besides a shallow and failed attempt at displaying intelligence. They have stripped Tails of the natural skills and genuine intellect he once had, so that he can be used as nothing more than a plot compass, a little narrator to help explain whatever nonsense the plot has in store for you, all while making terrible attempts at nerdy humor. Tails needs to be let focus on the specific intellectual stuff that progressed him as a character in the early days. His engineering skills. Take that yellow character assassination off him and throw it in a vat of holy water to wash the stench of evil off it. The writers have been using it as a plot crutch to pretend Tails is useful for far too long now, and it's only been since he started using it that his character has been on a steady decline. As for forces, we kinda touched on this earlier in the video, but not only am I sick to death of talking about the Tails segment in this game, not to mention you guys having to sit there and listen to it, I think this dead horse has been thoroughly beaten into a fine paste at this stage. Just know that for me, this bad, this good. And Tails should have been the one playable in the Avatar stages. He's a tech guy, for Christ's sake. It's so bloody simple. But what can we really do when confronted by something like forces?
First, you say no. Then, you get out of there.
Done. Thanks, Sonic. Flanderization. It's a word I think is thrown around so much now in the Sonic fandom that it's lost a lot of its impact. But when you actually bring things back to its raw definition, it really is spot on when you look at what's happened to Tails. And in reality, we all know it's not just Tails. Most of the once great characters of the Sonic series could read this definition as a diary of their lives. And that's what motivated me to make this series. Even if I am shouting at the clouds, it's still good to vent about how terrible these once great characters have become, and reminisce about the good times when they brought something truly special to the series. I've actually seen interesting comments by exhausted fans saying there really is no canon in Sonic anymore. And whether you agree with that statement or not, it's hard to argue against that view when pretty much every depiction of Sonic characters now is a shallow, one-note affair with absolutely no coherent message or arc. With Tails, the messaging for his character may always be all over the place. Plot compass, shallow plot compass, cheerleader, shithead, scaredy fox. But the overwhelming erosion of his character to fragile nerd who explains the plot and always has a crutch, computer in his hand, is plain as day. And the fact that Tails has already been on one of the most endearing, heartfelt, and interesting character journeys you could ever hope to find in what is essentially a mascot platformer, only to end up here, that can be quite hard to take. Tails used to be special, coming from nothing. He worked his way to being able to stand believably alongside Sonic the Hedgehog, the poster boy for friendship and accepting who you are, elevating the series' protagonist as he in turn elevated our favorite Fox Boy. And through the good and bad, I really can't imagine having one without the other. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion on the highs and lows for Tails. If you're like me, admiring the highs can really make the lows seem all the more nauseating, so that's always fun. But remembering these times is so important for preserving just how awesome these characters used to be, as well as the important messages they brought to their stories. I'd like to thank my special guest, Chaomix, for coming on and helping out with this part of the series. If you enjoy my wild ramblings on the Sonic series, if you somehow haven't already, be sure to check out his channel. I highly recommend his lore video on everyone's favorite life form. It's been a genuine pleasure working together to give this mutated fox child the recognition he deserves.
Thanks for having me on the channel once again. It's always a pleasure to do some deep dives on the Sonic series here on Ace Card Gaming. I do a lot of that stuff on my channel as well, so if you enjoyed this video, definitely come over my way and take a peek at some of my videos. I focus on really weird and obscure Sonic topics, so you may just find a video you never even knew you wanted to see. But anyways, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Peace.
As for me, if you're new to the channel, or just haven't done so yet, why not pull the trigger on subscribing now? If you like videos like these, analyzing and discussing all aspects of the Sonic series, reviewing its games and sometimes other franchises too, then you'll fit in perfectly here. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified when new videos go live. If you enjoyed this, if you could drop a like, that would be awesome. All those simple clicks and dumb YouTube metrics go a really long way towards helping the channel grow. And that in turn will help me bring more and more content to you guys, as I can move away from the more boring stuff that puts food on the table and focus more on YouTube. Anyway, a big thank you for watching. And as always guys, take care.